Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is currently the main focus for Disney and Lucasfilm, as well as Disney Plus and their live-action TV series, and a handful of other projects that will expand the Star Wars franchise. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future Star Wars content. Now, one thing about Episode 9 that a lot of people are very curious and are worried about is, of course, exactly how it's going to perform at the box office and what it really means for the future of the Star Wars franchise as we know it. Now, we do know that Disney and Lucasfilm are still developing a roadmap for the future of this franchise, not just with the movies, but also for the live-action TV series to come on Disney Plus and forming a new Star Wars universe that is actually said to be very much similar to the MCU, which a lot of people would debate on whether or not that's really a good or a bad idea by Disney and Lucasfilm to create a MCU-like universe for Star Wars, but that's exactly what their plan is with Disney Plus and the new TV series coming out, such as The Mandalorian, Kenobi, you got Cassian Andor, Mace Windu is in the talks, as well as a Yoda and young Luke Skywalker TV series, and there's even talks of a Dr. Aphra TV series of that comic book character within the Disney canon. So there's a lot going on for Disney Plus. However, with the new Star Wars trilogy, this is where things begin to get very exciting for the future of the franchise. Now, specifically, what's really intriguing about all of this is that it's explained that Disney and Lucasfilm are currently focused on The Rise of Skywalker, Disney Plus and their live-action TV series, as well as the new Star Wars trilogy, where it said that Kathleen Kennedy has her eyes on one director for the first film of the new trilogy that is dubbed as Star Wars X, and that they are in negotiations of keeping the Roman numeral tradition with the upcoming trilogy regardless if the films are set in the past or the future after Episode 9. The new trilogy is said to take place and take Star Wars in a different direction, and that these films will kickstart the new Star Wars universe by Disney, where all the films and TV series are said to interconnect with each other in a similar way like with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Additionally, it's described that Star Wars X will also have both Jon Favreau involved as well as Dave Filoni in some way, shape, or form. However, they will not be directors or writers for the first film, and that they are said to be advisors, since they know the Star Wars lore and the expanded universe best, which is what Disney will be using to develop the new film. Additionally, it's said that negotiations are also moving forward to get Keanu Reeves on board for the new Star Wars film that will kickstart the new trilogy, and that Keanu is showing interest. However, this all falls into scheduling with other projects he will be working on, such as John Wick 4 and also Matrix 4, as well as others. Also, it's said that originally Kevin Feige was going to produce his own new Star Wars movie. However, now Kathleen Kennedy may actually make a change to fit him in to actually being involved and on board with the first film of the new trilogy as a producer, dubbed Star Wars X. It's unclear as to what or who Keanu Reeves is aimed to play or portray. However, it's a safe bet he will portray a Jedi or a Sith in the upcoming film. It's that George Lucas will also be involved in some way as well, watching over the production of the film from the very beginning, to make sure that this new vision of Star Wars is what Star Wars really is, and that this film will also borrow many elements from George Lucas. The film is said to begin in early 2020, as they need to restart after David Benioff and D.B. Weiss left the projects, and that Disney and Lucasfilm are now starting from scratch. So let's go over a couple of parts about this. Now, when we look at this project in particular, the fact that it's going to basically hit the reset button on Star Wars, we talked about this a couple of days ago, that Disney and Lucasfilm have a big plan in place, and that big plan is to essentially restart the Star Wars franchise. Essentially, forget everything that they did with the sequel trilogy and how they handled Star Wars, and handling it differently this time with the new upcoming trilogy and a handful of spin-off movies that actually is going to go alongside with it all throughout the 2020s and moving on forward. Now, like I say, this all also does indeed depend on the success of The Rise of Skywalker when it comes to the box office results. Obviously, it seems like Disney doesn't really care about what the fans really think or respond to these movies, but what they do want to do is they want to actually bring Star Wars in a different direction. They want to do something that they actually want to do in a far darker way, and they want to make these movies more catered to the hardcore fans. You know, with the sequel trilogy, it really seems like that they didn't really pay much attention to, you know, how the fans were really reacting to those movies movies and it was all just about money, basically, right? If it makes money, that's all they really need because it makes up for the budget that they actually use for the film, and then they could just move on forward to the next movie. That's how it works. Even Mark Hamill said this at an interview, that, you know, it doesn't really matter about how good it is, only if it makes money. And there's actually an interview there on YouTube if you want to go ahead and check it out, and Mark Hamill, you know, he even goes on for like 3 minutes talking about that, but I digress. This new Star Wars trilogy, the first film dubbed Star Wars X, they are negotiating of actually including the Roman numeral tradition once more. Now, this is something that I think a lot of fans are going to be a little divided over, because obviously if it's based in the Old Republic era, it's going to be set in the past. Calling it, you know, episode 10, would that really make a lot of sense? That really does depend on how certain fans would view it. In my point of view, I think it wouldn't really matter, to be honest. I mean, yes, it's based in the past, I get that, but at the same exact time, I think that when we look at Star Wars as a trilogy or as a main movie, you want to look at it as episode, you know, 10, 11, whatever have you, right? In order to keep up with the tradition, to actually make it feel very nostalgic to what was actually done with the Skywalker saga. If not that, they could also change it up. They could call it chapters or part 1, part 2, and part 3, you know, kind of similar to what they did with other series and franchises out there, like The Godfather and stuff around those lines. They could do it like that, without a doubt. But that's actually the plan, is to include Roman numerals on these 3 new Star Wars movies, and so far, the first one is called Star Wars X, that's the dub. Basically that means Star Wars 10. X means 10 in Roman numeral. So the other piece that I do want to go over is Keanu Reeves, alright? Now, Keanu Reeves is a best fit for Star Wars. I don't know about you guys, but the fact that there have been a lot of discussions between Kathleen Kennedy, Kevin Feige, Keanu Reeves to get him on board for the first film in the new trilogy, and how that's all really moving forward. It's a very complex issue right now because of what happened with David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, and how they exited their trilogy, and how everything is now getting pretty much, you know, started over by Disney and Lucasfilm, and they have to figure out exactly what the best decision is for these new Star Wars movies, and moving on forward, what that really means for the Star Wars franchise, right? So, with that being said, they really are in a tough spot, because not only does the future depend on Episode 9, but also they have to figure out exactly what Star Wars really is at the end of the day, you know, when it comes to the theme, and when it comes to the overall tone, and the meaning, and the purpose of it all. Starting something completely from scratch really is a big deal. And the thing is, Kathleen Kennedy, the thing that really bothered me the other day was in that interview with Rolling Stone, she stated how they have no source material at all. They don't have 700-page book novels and stuff like that, or anything. But yet, the expanded universe is right there. And it seems like that they may not even take inspiration, you know, from certain elements of that. Meanwhile, they are using expanded universe material. They will be cherry picking, but they're going to make it into their own from what it seems. Very similar to what they did with, of course, the sequel trilogy, and of course other projects out there of how they used expanded universe material as well. A great example is this. In the expanded universe, Darth Vader's castle was a thing, and that was actually based on a different world that had a totally different design. But the Disney version is based on Mustafar, and it has a different design. Honestly, I think it was a better castle in the Disney version. I think that's one thing that they really got correct there, and that made a lot of sense to me. So there's still hope that even if they're just going to cherry pick elements from the EU and not directly copy the expanded universe itself, for example, the Old Republic is actually said to be changed from dwindling it down to only hundreds of years before the Phantom Menace to, of course, instead of how it was in the EU, of it being based thousands of years before the Phantom Menace. So you could see how that change right there and there alone isn't really the best way to go. But anyways, guys, I would like to hear what you all have to say about everything related to the future of the franchise and where things are going and what that really means for Star Wars. You know, Keanu Reeves and everything related to them calling, you know, these movies, you know, labeling them with the Roman numerals and how they're negotiating that. Honestly, I think that the Roman numerals are a good thing. If not that, you got to put like a chapter system or call them parts or whatever it may be. You know, it has to be something, and I think that's exactly what a nice trilogy, you know, formation really is, the format of it all, having a part 1, part 2, a part 3. Anyways, guys, drop a comment below, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.